podcast. Your host, Dr. Kelly Ray, is a renowned mindset coach and counselor, often referred to as the inner critic tamer. With a passion for guiding individuals through life's challenges, she specializes in personal growth and emotional healing. In each episode, Dr. Kelly Ray shares invaluable insights, practical strategies, and relatable stories designed to inspire you to take that first step toward positive change. So, grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and get ready to dive deep into meaningful conversations that empower you on your journey. Let's welcome Dr. Kelly Ray.
Hey there. Welcome back to the Getting to the Week podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Ray, and as always, I'm so glad that you decided to stop by and spend some time with me today. I want to start today's episode with a question that may sound a little strange at first. What part of you is afraid of being supported? Now, I know some of you are thinking, Kelly Ray, are you kidding? I'm not afraid of support. I'd love some support. And honestly, that's exactly what I would have said years ago, too. If someone had asked me what I wanted, I could have answered immediately. I wanted a partner. I wanted someone to share life with. I wanted someone to help carry the load. I wanted someone standing beside me. The problem wasn't that I didn't know what I wanted. The problem was that I didn't trust that it existed. Or maybe more accurately, I didn't trust myself to attract it. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because sometimes the thing standing between us and what we want isn't a lack of desire. Sometimes it's a lack of trust. So wherever you are in the world, grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get this conversation started. You know, for a long time, I thought my challenge was figuring out what I wanted. But eventually I realized that wasn't true. I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted help. I wanted partnership. I wanted someone to carry some of the weight. At the time I was raising Amira, I was working. I was trying to keep everything together. I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't looking for someone to rescue me. I was looking for someone to stand beside me. But every time I imagined a relationship, something interesting happened. I didn't imagine support. I imagined responsibility. I imagined another person whose needs I would have to manage. Another person to take care of. Another person to worry about. Another person who might eventually disappoint me. In my mind, adding a partner didn't make the load lighter. It made the load heavier. And that realization stopped me in my tracks. Because it meant I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of carrying even more. Those of you who have listened to some of my episodes throughout the years have heard me talk about a part of myself named Trudy. I often relate to her as the inner critic or the shadow or your inner child or whatever you want to refer to that as. And Trudy showed up during some deep shadow work. At first, she didn't appear as a little girl. She appeared as an angry teenager standing behind a chain-link fence, dressed in black combat boots, with her arms crossed and a serious attitude. A huge Rottweiler stood beside her like security. She looked like the kind of person who was daring anyone to come closer. And behind her, it looked like a junkyard, dismantling yard of sorts. Piles of discarded things, broken things, things that looked forgotten and unwanted. At least that's what I thought. It wasn't until much later that I realized behind all that armor was a 5-year-old girl carrying a plastic sword who genuinely believed she was responsible for protecting everyone. And honestly, she was. The best way she knew how. As I've gotten to know her better, I've realized something important. For a long time, I thought Trudy was afraid. And she was. But fear wasn't the whole story. The deeper truth was that she was operating from the only information she had. How could Trudy imagine healthy support? How could she imagine someone carrying half the load? How could she imagine being protected? How could she imagine a relationship that felt safe? She didn't have that point of reference. She didn't have that experience. She was a little girl who learned very early that being vulnerable could be dangerous. That protection wasn't always available. That sometimes you had to figure things out yourself. That if things fell apart, you were often left carrying the pieces. So when adult Kelly Ray said, "I want a partner," Trudy didn't hear someone to share the load. She heard another person will have to take care of. When I said I want support, she didn't hear someone standing beside me. She heard, ugh, another responsibility. And honestly, given her experiences, that made perfect sense. Because from where Trudy stood, support wasn't something you received. Support was something you provided. It was your job. It was your responsibility. It was your burden to carry. And this is something I help clients understand all the time. Often people come to me frustrated with a part of themselves. They want the anxiety to stop. They want the inner critic to shut the F up. They want the self-sabotage to disappear. But what we often discover together is that these parts aren't trying to ruin their lives. They're trying to protect them. The problem isn't usually the intention. It's that the strategy no longer fits the life they're trying to live now. I don't spend my time teaching people how to silence these parts of themselves. I help them learn how to understand what those parts have been trying to communicate all along. And when people begin to understand the language underneath those patterns, everything starts to shift. I think a lot of strong women find themselves here. They want support, but they don't fully trust support. They want love, but they don't fully trust love. They want help, but they don't truly trust help. Because somewhere along the way they learned, if this falls apart, I'm the one who's going to have to deal with it. And that's not weakness. That's experience. It's what happens when you spent years being the responsible one, the dependable one, the fixer, the problem solver, the one everyone turns to. You become so accustomed to carrying things that support starts to feel unfamiliar. And sometimes what is unfamiliar feels unsafe, especially when carrying everything has become part of your identity. One of the biggest shifts in my own healing has been realizing that support doesn't always look the way I thought it did. Support isn't someone rescuing you. Support isn't someone taking over your life. Support isn't losing your independence. Healthy support is someone carrying their share. It's someone showing up consistently. It's someone who contributes instead of consumes. It's someone who stands beside you rather than on your shoulders. And for people who have spent their entire lives carrying things, that can be difficult to believe. Not because they're broken, not because they're stubborn, but because they've had far more practice carrying than receiving. So today I want to leave you with a different question. Not what do you want, but what would become possible if you believed you didn't have to carry it all alone? What would change if support didn't automatically mean obligation? What would change if help didn't come with strings attached? What would change if partnership didn't mean sacrifice? What would change if you trusted that someone could stand beside you and carry their share? Because maybe, just maybe, the goal isn't to become less strong. Maybe the goal is to realize that strength doesn't have to be a solo act. Today, I have a lot more compassion for Trudy than I used to. For sure I do. Not because she got everything right, but because I understand why she believed what she did. She wasn't trying to keep me lonely. She wasn't trying to make life harder. She was trying to keep me safe. And maybe there's parts of you doing the exact same thing. So this week, Instead of judging those parts, try getting curious about them. Ask yourself, what are they protecting? What are they afraid might happen? Because sometimes the parts of us that create the most frustration are the very parts carrying the oldest pain. And when we learn how to listen differently, we often discover they're not enemies at all. They're protectors who have been working overtime for a very long time. And what might become possible if they learn they didn't have to carry everything alone? Maybe the strongest thing we can do isn't carry everything ourselves. Maybe the strongest thing we can do is allow someone trustworthy to carry part of that with us. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Getting Through the Week. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and remember, you've probably been carrying more than anyone realizes. Until next week, I send you so much love.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Getting Through the Week podcast with Dr. Kelly Ray. If you're looking to connect with her or schedule an appointment, here's how you can reach her. Follow her on Instagram at Ask Dr. Kelly Ray. Check out her Facebook page at Dr. Kelly Ray B. Find her on TikTok at Dr. Kelly Ray. Visit her website at drkellyray.com. Or send her an email at drkellyray@gmail.com. Until next week, Dr. Kelly Ray sends you so much love.